Hey gang, Brian here. If you're coming to this episode from a podcast called Bring Me the Axe, I'd like to assure you that you're in the right place. Dave and I decided that before we got too deep into this podcast business, we changed the name of the show to something a little more original. As it happens, there's like 6 podcasts called The Brothers Grimm. It's hard enough already to stand out amongst all the other horror podcasts. Why make it harder on ourselves by confusing ourselves with other shows? From now on, we're the Bring Me the Axe Horror Pod. And if you want to connect with us on other platforms, you can find us simply by Googling Bring Me the Axe Horror Podcasts. We're everywhere. And now, on with the show.
You're listening to the Brothers Grimm podcast, presented by the Cinema Suicide Film Society on Substack. I'm Brian White, editor-in-chief of Cinema Suicide. I'm joined by my co-host and actual brother, Dave White. Dave, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
Not bad, not bad. How's that pickle beer?
Well, we're about to find out.
Yeah. All right. So we practically grew up in neighborhood video stores and the steady diet of utter garbage.
Holy shit. Oh, wow.
Yeah. Is it?
Sorry.
It's a little pickly?
Yeah.
All right.
I was not expecting that. All right. Well,
All right.
Carry on.
All right. So there's no one I enjoy. There's no one else I enjoy.
Woo!
Chopping it up with more about trashy movies and Dave. Just before we get into it, here's a little housekeeping. If you want to keep up with us between episodes, you can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at GrimBrosPod at both. You can also contact us directly at grimbrospod@gmail.com with any questions, comments, or suggestions. Do let us know if there's a movie that you love and would like to hear us give the business. Lastly, if you like what you hear, you can subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. And you'd be doing us a favor by leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Just wanted to get all that out of the way right at the top of the show. So we've got a good one tonight. I've been looking forward to talking about this one. We warned you last time. So I'm going to give you a taste right now. We'll give you a little taste.
What do you see?
The Howling. Somewhere in the city. In this human jungle. It begins.
Just try. He's right there.
What do you see?
What's there, Karen?
What do you see, Karen?
What's there?
Somewhere in these woods. In this primal, sensuous, secret place. Lies an experience too terrifying for words. And now, all anyone can do is watch and wait.
Tonight I'm going to show you something. Make you believe.
The Howling.
That's right, it's The Howling. Joe Dante. We're finally at Joe Dante. And I'm so pleased that we're finally kicking it off with this guy, with this one in particular.
That's a banger.
Oh,
It's a
yeah.
banger of a movie.
It's a hell of a flick, man. So, some facts about it. The year was 1981. We're back in the early 80s because it's kind of becoming a recurring trend with us. So it's 1981, big year for werewolves. If you didn't know this, there were 4 werewolf movies released in America in just that year, and another one in Spain as well. Paul Naschy released Return of the Werewolf, which was a remake of The Werewolf vs. the Vampire Woman, which
is a utter garbage if you've never seen it.
I fucking love that one, dude. That one is so good. I haven't seen the remake. I that's the one I have not. I've not seen the one that was released in 81, but I love the original. I think it's ridiculous and it's wicked spooky in parts. But yeah, so
So wait, what are the other ones?
the other movies that were released that year were So that was Return of the Werewolf, which is the Paul Naschy one. Full Moon High, which is a Larry Cohen movie, and I've never seen it, but I watched the trailer.
It's a comedy, isn't it?
It's a comedy.
It's like a high school comedy.
Yeah, and this is a few years before Teen Wolf, and somehow Teen Wolf didn't get sued because it's basically the same movie except it's football instead of basketball.
Everybody be ripping off Larry Cohen.
I know.
His sister got murdered.
I did not know that.
Like 10 years ago.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Like a mysterious thing, or like, what do you know about this?
It was like a robbery. It was a famous thing. She was like going home after a premiere of, what the fuck was that? Cher and Christina Aguilera, Burlesque.
Oh yeah.
She was like a PR person on that movie, and she was going home after the premiere, and she was like at an intersection, and someone just shot her.
God damn.
And it turned out it was like a robbery kind of thing, but the guy was kind of a little bit nutty.
Yeah. That sucks. That sucks.
So yeah. That's my digression.
So An American Werewolf in London, obviously, the John Landis movie. And the other is Wolfen, which is have you ever seen it?
I have tried to watch it. Albert Finney.
Albert Finney. It's good. It's just it's like technically a shapeshifter movie. It's not like, I don't recall actually seeing werewolves in it. They're kind of
I know I've tried to watch it. I don't think I've ever made it through.
It's it's not bad. It's but man, that's a tough lot to keep up with. Also released that year, Blood Beach. Which is about
that movie is
the monster,
real hard.
The monster under the sand. The Omen 3, Dead and Buried.
Fuck yeah.
Which we got to get to at some point. I love
that
that's a hell of a movie. And Wes Craven's Deadly Blessing,
which is an extremely strange film.
Yeah, I've never seen it. No,
that's the Amish one, right?
Maybe.
I think it's the Amish one.
Oh. Well, if Wes Craven's doing Amish, I might have to check that one out.
It's I think Sharon Stone is in it as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now you're talking.
Yeah, it's a very odd movie.
Yep. So cast and crew, as we mentioned, Joe Dante is the director. He's one of my favorite 80s horror movie directors. Before Quentin Tarantino or Rob Zombie were out there like referencing their favorite movies in their own movies, Joe Dante was out there doing it. It was kind of his thing. Like a lot of filmmakers from the 70s who would go on to sort of shape the industry in the 80s. Dante was one of Roger Corman's guys. And prior to this, he and the Howling's writer John Sayles worked on Piranha, which is
John Sayles was also from the Corman school.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it's Corman produced so many people who would go on to do like really, really big things and also like really small things. But like his influence on Hollywood is like, it cannot be overstated. Like he produced.
You don't have to sell me. You know how I feel about him.
Yeah. So before this, the two of them made Piranha, which is a Jaws ripoff. It's way better than it has any right to be. And it's wicked funny.
I believe that's actually what Steven Spielberg said about it. Someone said that about it. That this movie is better than it has any right to be.
Well, yeah, like, and this movie, like Piranha and then The Howling were like huge going forward in the 80s because this was 1981. 1982, E.T. comes out, and who's the mom in that movie? Dee Wallace, who's, the star in this one. And also Steven Spielberg, who at this time has his fingerprints on basically everything. He gets Dante to do Gremlins, which was like the other fucking sensation in 1984, apart from like Purple Rain and Ghostbusters and everything that came out that year. So like the confluence of events in this movie and like the movies that came before it, like it had a really oversized impression on the 1980s. And I love Joe Dante. There's something about the way that he makes movies that there is a sort of like gleeful abandon in the mayhem that he does. Like Gremlins, I think, is outstanding. And like there's that.
He's someone who you can tell genuinely loves films.
Yeah.
Like just in like across the board. Like he just loves the magic of movies.
Yeah.
He was. Did you know when Arrow did the reissue of, I think it's Blood and Black Lace? It's either Blood and Black Lace or Whip in the Body. I think it's Blood and Black Lace is the one that's about the fashion industry, right?
Yes.
I think it's that one. When Arrow did their 4K restoration of it, they used Joe Dante's print because he has like the best print of that film that exists in the world.
Makes sense. Cause like he also gave us Trailers from Hell, which has been pretty quiet lately, but like there was a period there for a few years where like Trailers from Hell was like fucking huge.
Wait, he did that?
Yeah, that's like, I think most of the trailers come from like source
from his collection,
from his personal collection. But like, no, he's all over that. That's his project, with a couple other people, obviously. But yeah, that was primarily his thing. But yeah, like there's a couple other movies throughout the 80s of his that I think are great. Like The Burbs is one of my favorite comedies ever. It's just fucking hilarious. But you can see it, like he watched a ton of monster movies and horror movies when he was a kid and just puts it on screen, as you'll see in this one, because this movie is loaded with references to other movies and as well as like people who had a real definite impression on him. So the cast is Dee Wallace, who we mentioned. After this, she becomes America's mom with E.T. Following that, like it's almost like she can't not be cast as mothers.
But also, her career, like, it didn't go the way that it should have, I think. Like, I don't know if she got pigeonholed as a horror actor or what, but, like, she's a really good actor.
She's great.
And she's in some fucking huge movies. But it's like, after she makes E.T., she seems to do a lot of horror.
Yeah.
And just kind of get, dumped into that bucket.
It does seem like as much money as horror makes as like an industry item, it does seem like it's a bit of a gravity well. Like if you get into it, it's really, really hard to get out of it because like, especially if you're in a movie like this or like Halloween or something really iconic where this particular movie made a particularly huge amount of money, so everybody wants all of the little bits and pieces of that movie for their own movie. So what are they going to do? They're going to hire all the people who were involved in that movie, like down to the cast and crew.
I mean, that's how Ken Ferré like keeps his rent paid.
yeah. This also features her. It was her. I think they were engaged at the time.
They were engaged. They weren't married,
but they were married after this. Christopher Stone, because after this, when E.T., she becomes known as Dee Wallace Stone. Whenever she was mentioned, it's Dee Wallace Stone. Right. I call him in this great value Tom Atkins.
Yeah, he's definitely a bargain bin if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, he's not. I mean,
he's like every man.
Must have got him like 2 for 1 on it or something because he's not terribly. He doesn't leave an impression. And the fact that every time I saw him, I saw Tom Atkins really kind of says something.
And there's that part where like he gets out of bed and he has his shirt off, and I'm thinking, I don't think this is doing what they think it's doing.
yeah. But the two of them remained married until his death in the mid-90s. He had a heart attack, I guess. Also in this is Patrick Macnee from the Avengers, the British one, that is. John Carradine, who named from our last episode when we did the Sentinel. Robert Picard,
famously known as my favorite Dracula.
Your favorite Dracula, which okay. This is also Robert Picardo's first feature. He'd had a long run on Broadway before this.
Was he on Star Trek?
He was on Star Trek Voyager, I think.
I feel like I've seen him in everything, but I can only picture him in like Star Trek.
I know he's been in so much, but for whatever reason, I only think of him as that character. He's like a hologram. And I think it's Star Trek Voyager. And here's the thing. I've watched like one episode of Star Trek.
I don't think I've ever seen the show.
And yet that's the one I think of. Yep, when I think of him. But after this, like he's like a Joe Dante regular. He's in like 9 Joe Dante movies.
Yeah, this cast, it is a huge cast. It is a weird cast.
It's a really, really wild cast. But
Slim fucking Pickens is in this movie.
Slim Pickens.
America's favorite rodeo clown, Slim Pickens.
And I got notes.
And that is not a joke. He was an actual rodeo clown.
That's awesome. I got a note in here about him that I'm sure we'll get to when they get to the colony. But also, this is so. If you've ever seen a Joe Dante movie, then you know that Dick Miller is in the movie, and he always has a little cameo part, or it's just a small part. But he's in like just about every Joe Dante movie.
He's in this one for quite a bit,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah, he's
I was surprised by how much he's in it.
yeah, because usually he just kind of shows up and he's got a line. But like he's a guy that if you don't know who we're talking about by name, you definitely know him by face. You've seen him in something. He plays a character,
And he always plays Walter Paisley.
Always plays Walter Paisley. Walter Paisley is the name of the character that he played in Corman's movie Bucket of Blood. And so, for whatever reason, Joe Dante always casts him in a small part in his movies, and his name is always Walter Paisley. Also of note for the cast and crew, Rob Bottin, who was Rick Baker's assistant at the time, did all of the took the lead on special effects in this movie. Rick Baker was supposed to do the effects, but he got booked for American Werewolf at the same time and left Bottin sort of as a consolation prize. And then a year later,
I think we all know who wore it best.
I'm gonna say, because that was my next question. So a year later, Bottin really leaves his mark on the industry with The Thing, but we're not talking about The Thing. We're talking about The Howling. And of the two big werewolf movies of the year, which one do you think? And I think you just answered my question, but which one do you think has the better wolves?
I think they're too different. I think obviously the transformation scene in American Werewolf is iconic.
Yeah. Because I actually watched both of these movies back to back because I really wanted to have a little bit of perspective on it.
And I think the Howling wolves look better far away. They don't look great up close.
Oh, I love them up close. I think the wolf suit is outstanding.
Some of them look good up close.
Yeah.
Sometimes they look really silly. The transformation stuff can be real cheesy.
I love the transformations in this. Do you have I'm in terms of like the classic monsters, I'm really more of a Frankenstein guy, but like I do love like werewolf movies. Do you have like one that you like more than others?
I love werewolf movies in general. I'm a big fan of the Wolfman.
The original one? The
original
the
one.
Universal, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the was it Abbott and Costello?
Oh yeah, that's
Frankenstein, I think.
Yep, that's usually the
that
other
one a
everybody,
lot.
Points to.
The Howling, I think, is probably of the later ones, probably the best. I saw one not that long ago. I was called like Wolf Moon or something. It's about like a guy he's a werewolf and he lives in like a housing tract and he's like just trying to keep to himself, but this like kid figures out he's a werewolf. I can't remember what it was called. It was really good though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's such a hard one to pull off though. It always looks like shit.
You really do, like, because you have to do a transformation scene just because that's what everybody comes for.
And it looks like they inevitably end up looking like Muppets.
Yeah.
I think that's the issue in The Howling is that there are certain angles where they just look like Muppets. Especially that goddamn ending.
I know. We'll talk about the wolf at the end because that one is so weird. It's so weird. But I think if I have to pick one or the other, I'll always pick The Howling. I like American Werewolf, but I feel like it's a different kind of movie, and it definitely. As much as this one definitely feels like a Joe Dante movie, the other one also kind of feels like a John Landis movie, and I just like Joe Dante better.
Well, John Landis is not a good person, so.
Oh, those poor children.
And that is objectively speaking.
Yeah. But also recently in terms of like recent werewolf movies, it's a lot of them fall back too much on like CGI for my taste, but. Yeah. There's one called Dog Soldiers from
Dog Soldiers. I was just about to say that one's pretty good. The plot's a little slog, but
it's aliens with werewolves basically. But like the wolf suits in that one are like the best werewolf suits I've ever seen. Like they're so good, and they're really conservative about showing them so that when you do get a good look at them, they're really good.
Yeah.
But a couple more notes before we really dive into it. This is based on a novel by a guy named
I had no idea.
Me either. I found this out looking it up. And not only is there just one novel, there's like 3 or 4 of them by the same guy, a guy named Gary Brandner. But the movie apparently bears only a passing resemblance. If you watch the trailer for this movie on Trailers from Hell, which I mentioned, Josh Olson is the guy who does the sort of commentary on it. He remarks that he's not even sure if Joe Dante read the book before he made the movie. And then this bit also surprised me, kind of like when we were talking about Amityville. There are 7 sequels to this movie. Did you know this?
I know I can think of 4.
I know because I top out at part 3.
Is that the one with the kangaroo?
That's the marsupials one. Yeah. I've seen
the 4th one too.
Oh, I did not know this. I've seen the second one, and it's fucking stupid.
It is really, really terrible.
It's really, really, really bad. The whole thing seems to hinge on the scene where Sybil Danning like rips her top off, because if you watch the movie all the way to the end, there's like this music video that plays over the credits where she does it like over and over and over again. So yeah, the sequels are I guess are all uniformly terrible. And there's a remake supposedly in the works from the guy who directed it, the recent.
Oh, that's not necessary.
I know.
You gonna mention who did the music for this?
Oh, yes, I am. That would be one Pino Donaggio.
Pino Donaggio, my favorite film composer.
He is great, man. Like, I mean, we were talking about this earlier. Like, I'm not super keyed in on him, but like, I do enjoy the soundtrack to Tourist Trap a lot. It's really, really spooky. It's very, very effective, and I really love this one too. There's a lot of very conventional like horror movie scoring with a lot of like very sharp, stabby strings like you might find in like a Manfredini score. But there's also a ton of like pipe organ,
which is weird for him because he is, although he has done a lot of horror, he's a pretty traditional composer.
Yeah.
He wrote that. I think he wrote the "You Don't Have to Say You Love Me," that Dusty Springfield song.
Did not know that.
He wrote that. But yeah, I mean, he did like Carrie, Don't Look Now. I think he did that Dario Argento movie Trauma.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he's done a shitload of stuff, like a ton of De Palma stuff, but it's mostly really like pretty traditional strings, which is why these like weird kind of droning, warbling noises throughout this score are pretty atypical for him.
Right.
But he kills it.
There are a lot of like weird moments because I didn't really notice the first time. It was really the second time that I went through when I was taking notes, when I was really sort of paying attention to sort of all the details of the movie. And there are a lot of like story beats where it's not silent, though it feels silent, but there's a lot of like just noise. That was deliberately composed for the scene. It's
like non-diegetic noise.
Right. It's great. It's outstanding. So of all the sequels released in 1981, this was the first one to be released. It had a budget of $1.5 million, and its box office gross was almost $18 million. So, for 1981, when there's not like 3,000 movie theaters in the United States, that's really, really good. Also, one of the most evocative movie posters of any horror movie that I can think of.
Okay, so that I got to jump in on that one because this is of the VHS boxes, this was the one that I remember more than most, I think, because the art doesn't make any sense, and it's very unclear what's going on.
Yeah.
Like it looks like a corpse kind of.
Well, all you see is
ripping through
you
something.
Just see the fingers and the tearing, and then like a screaming mouth. There's absolutely nothing wolfy about it.
Yeah, and I'm sure Joe Dante had nothing to do with it.
Oh yeah.
It is such a shitty cover.
I think it's great. Oh my god!
And yeah, I mean it's iconic, but it doesn't make any sense. It does not represent the movie at all.
No. But like I remember every time we would go to like a video store or something like that, like particularly like when we were little, we were kids, and like when that stuff still kind of spooked me. Like there's certain box art that really stayed with me, and like this was one of them. Like I remember like there were a couple of stores that were near us that had posters of this up, and it just I don't know, it spoke to me in a way that like others didn't, like it suggested something because it does like this, and all the marketing for it, of course, is like, this is the most terrifying movie you will see this year, but it's not really like that. It's actually kind of a comedy. But they were really going for it in that same way, and like all the marketing, it really kind of spooked me, kind of in the same way that like I remember seeing the Friday the 13th poster when like Dad took me to see The Empire Strikes Back.
And that's a badass poster.
That's a great poster. Again, like, doesn't really tell you what you're like, what the movie's about, but like it leaves a fucking mark.
Yeah, that is some economical shit because it is just a dude standing there with a knife.
Yep. So let's get into it. So this movie opens up on a TV studio.
Oh, hey, wait, question. Is this the same place they shot the Goonies?
You know, it might be. I don't know. I know
Those beach scenes look like the Goonies.
it's so this is all shot in Mendocino County, which is sort of a coastal county in Northern California. So it's up above San Francisco. It might actually be like the same area, because it definitely does have that kind of geography, and it's in California, but it doesn't feel like California, because like whenever they do Californian movies, it's always Los Angeles.
I'm gonna ask the internet. The internet will know.
Yeah, you look that up. I'm gonna get into this. So we open up on a TV studio when Patrick McNee is on like a talk show. He's pitching what sounds like a self-help book. There's a lot of like flashing back and forth as we're trying to sort of establish several little motifs. So there's real close-up, quick flashes of Picardo, like mostly his mouth, as his character Eddie Quist, and he's in his apartment. And Eddie is a serial killer. Dee Wallace is on the street going to meet him, while back at the studio, they're sort of queuing up what looks like some sort of like a on the street reporting, as they're trying to track down this killer who kind of has got the city in the grips of terror.
This is where you get Kevin McCarthy as the studio head or something.
Yeah. So a little later on, I got notes about him, but we'll mention him. So Kevin McCarthy, he plays the station manager in this, and he
has been 100 years old forever.
I know. He's so his original, if you know Kevin McCarthy at all, it's probably from Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the original one. He's the main guy, the one who everybody's seen the scene at the end where he's running around like freaking out in traffic. That's him. So he plays basically a dick in this movie. He's just a gigantic jerk. He's the station manager. And if you've ever seen the Weird Al movie UHF, he's basically the exact same character in that one, only a little bit more of a fascist.
Well, he's also in Piranha, and he plays a similarly terrible person.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I wonder if like that was like when Weird Al was like, we got to get a station manager. Get me the guy from the Howling and Invasion of the Body Snatchers. But one of the first things that happened, it jumped out, it grabbed me, and I had to write a note. So Dee Wallace, her character's name is Karen White, and she's like an anchor for the local news. And she's on the street going to meet Eddie Quist when she runs into a guy in an alley who sticks out his leg and asks, how much for a half and half? And this takes me back to our fucking Maniac episode, which is like, what is this street language that everybody is speaking? Because in that one, the hookers are talking about like the ultimate and around the world. And I'm like, what is a half and half? Like a half and half what? This is like could I just go up to somebody and be like, hey, give me a double animal style? You know, like, what the fuck
These are
this?
like the fucking jokes that I would make on the fly.
Oh, I couldn't resist it, because like we just talked about this. But she's supposed to go to a phone booth and give him a call, and then he's going to tell her where to meet him. And his whole thing is he leaves a calling card everywhere he goes, like whenever he kills somebody, and it's a smiley face sticker. So you're going to see smiley face stickers wherever it is that he's like around. And so she's wandering down the sleazy Sunset Strip. She goes into a phone booth, picks up the phone, starts calling, and there's a guy outside who's waiting.
Now, I will say, before you say who that guy is, I have not looked this up. I could be totally wrong. I think this is a nod to the William Castle cameo in Rosemary's Baby.
It absolutely is. It 100% is. because and honestly, okay, so it is not 100% is. It probably very much is, and
I mean, it's like the same exact
it's the
scene.
same setup, but also Dante made the movie Matinee, which isn't about Castle, but it's about a guy like Castle,
Yep.
right? So he's obviously a fan, and like this was his big like thing. And also, like, this is the guy who gave him a start. He puts him in the movie and the whole thing. But yeah, that's Roger Corman who waits outside. So once she gets the call and is told where to go, she goes out and is like, "All yours, mister." And then he goes in, and yeah, there it is. It's Roger Corman.
It's a really weird structure. I mean, the whole movie is really weirdly structured, but just to be dropped into there's like this kind of your program is already in progress type of thing.
Yeah.
Where like we don't have any of the backstory or any context. It's just like, here's the news lady.
Yep.
And also she's hunting a serial killer because for some reason the police won't. I don't know.
Yeah, and actually, when I was trying to take the notes for this, as I was writing this, I realized I was gonna have a really hard time sort of doing this sort of like scene to scene breakdown that we usually do, because this movie has a lot of like jumping back and forth, and there's a lot of cuts. Like, it's not a movie with a lot of sort of like steady scenery, and it's not a this happens, then this happens, then this happens. We're constantly like shooting back between the street, and then like there's some police who are supposed to be like an escort for her, and then we go back to the studio, and then we go back to her, and then we go back to this, and it's like that throughout the movie. Like, even as
It's also a weird mix of like actual landscapes and then like soundstage stuff.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, this really is the Sunset Strip, and the porno store that she goes into in the next scene is like a real porno store. Like, they didn't dress it up or anything like that. They just shot in one of like the sleazy spots on the strip. But before we even get to there, there's this really funny scene where it cuts to one of the anchormen in a restroom, and he's like, he's like reading his copy for the night, and he's sort of rehearsing his speech for it.
It is a scene out of like Anchorman.
I love it, because what he's doing, and I noticed this. I've seen this movie 1,000 times, but I've only noticed it this time, probably because I was really paying attention. But when you see it, he's addressing the camera directly, but the camera is like slowly pulling back as he does this, and you realize
I got to abandon. I'm abandoning the pickle beer. I can't do this.
You got to get you something more conventional.
Holy shit! All right, go on.
Yeah. But the camera is slowly pulling back, and we realize that he's speaking into a mirror, but he's like looking at the camera's reflection in the mirror as he does it. But then great value Tom Atkins comes in, and he kind of composes himself before returning. And he tries to talk to him, and he realizes that in spite of his like Anchorman voice, he's got like a twangy like Southern accent. And then as soon as Tom Atkins leaves the scene, he sort of composes himself and goes back into it. And he sort of like goes back to addressing the camera. There's no reason for him to do it, but it's a really neat touch in terms of filmmaking. And I thought that was really funny.
There's a lot of that shit in this movie. There's a lot of that kind of like nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Aren't people funny?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's never mocking. It's never cruel. It's always kind of done with like, it's all in good fun.
I think he was one of the first people to really do that. Like this wasn't really until like the Spielbergs came along, like people, and like John Carpenter does this a little bit too, though he doesn't lay it on quite as thick as Joe Dante does. But like, this was probably the first generation of filmmakers who really grew up on Hollywood.
And who weren't shy about like their self-awareness.
Yeah, because like in the 90s, you would get like Tarantino and Kevin Smith and like Robert Rodriguez, who spared no opportunity to just name drop movies that they fucking love and like reference them left and right. But like, this was really kind of like the first wave of that. And it doesn't feel,
and it gives it a really weird tone. Like this movie is all over the place in terms of tone, but it never feels inconsistent. It's like you're watching this grimy shit on the screen, but there's also like this kind of whimsy to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really
I think that's what I like. Cause I gotta admit, like, I do love when a movie's like, hey, I've seen this movie too, right? Like here's me like signaling to you, like I it's corny, but I love it.
Like, hey, aren't porn stores funny?
Not this one. This one is gross.
And I mean, I agree on both fronts. They are funny and gross.
Yeah. So she goes into the porno store she's been instructed to go to, and every time she like walks by like one of the customers, they just like hurriedly throw their shit back on the rack.
Yeah,
and, like,
I love that
very-
shit where they're all skittish and they all just kind of run out.
Yeah, they're like, oh no, shit, a lady. But she goes into the back where the booths are and sort of goes
Which
in.
proceeds, so that fun whimsy of the oh shit, a lady,
Yeah.
precedes what is one of the sleaziest moments of probably any 80s movie
Yeah.
I've ever seen.
Well, yeah, like what is it? Videodrome's got a little bit of this too in it.
But it has like a Last House on the Left kind of edginess that I'm like, I don't like any of this.
Right, because it's not just like, because she goes in and she sits down, and then Eddie Quist, the guy that she's looking for, comes in behind her and pops a coin in the machine. The movie starts, and it's not just like a porno movie; it's like a rapey porno movie.
Well, so he says something really weird. He says, like, he's kind of whispering in her ear and doing whatever. And then he says she didn't feel a thing. Is he sort of just like projecting, or is this supposed to be him?
Right, because I don't know, because
if it's supposed to be him, there's a lot of unanswered questions. Like, who put the film on the thing?
I know. There's also a little bit of a lead in that I think it gets lost in the kind of constant shuffle of like scenery and stuff you're seeing when they go back to the TV studio, because there's a report of one of Quist's victims that her husband, because her husband's also there while the police are there kind of like monitoring. She's wearing a wire and stuff like that. So he's there as just, he's worried that his wife's going to meet a serial killer. And like in the process of that, they sort of reveal that like they have footage of one of the victims. So like maybe they're talking about that victim, or maybe he's actually talking about the woman in the movie that's watching. But yeah, there's a lot of that. He's they're these people, they have dead eyes, they don't have souls, not like you.
It sort of hints at, it's more of that like disorientation. Like there's so much shit you don't know because you've just been dropped in at the end of the story.
Yeah. Like this is something that's been ongoing for a while. And then she eventually, like, he's talking, he kind of monologues a little bit, and then he sort of steps back and his voice drops. It's being modulated, and he's like, all right, you can turn around now, Karen. And he's like completely obscured in the glare of like the projector. So we don't really see what's going on. We just catch a little bit of his head in the glare. And something is definitely not right. But then he like attacks her. And there's like a lot of these quick cuts of like her in peril, and it's not really clear what's happening to her in the moment. But as this is happening, sorry.
And then like two white Southern cops, they just start firing into public.
Yeah, they don't even open the door. The guy just shoots through the door. Like he could have hit her, like good shooting. But yeah, they take out, presumably they take out Eddie Quist and not her. They lead her out into the street, and the police are there. It's a whole to do. But what we learn is that this was understandably a very traumatic experience.
Well, you get this other scene again that kind of compounds that kind of tension and disorientation when she's outside
and they're flashing
and they're talking to her. Yeah, and they're just flashing across men. Like there's some women in there, but it's very clear that he's flashing across men's faces.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like she's wondering if there's menace like outside as well.
Yeah, and there
just
may as well
quickly looking at men.
There might as well be, because like these people have no expression whatsoever, like just dead eyes.
They all want a half and half.
and the ultimate.
Yeah, why else would you be there?
Yep. But then from here we cut to Karen and Bill's place. This was just a sense of their relationship. They're very close.
I think this is actually a really important scene though, because it's throughout this movie. Well, there's a shift in his character, which you'll get to eventually.
Yeah.
But like, this is 1981, coming off of like hyper masculine 70s, and this movie I think has a lot to do with masculinity. But coming off of that, he could have been portrayed as Tom Atkins, like as this ridiculous cartoon.
Yeah.
But he's not, and he's vegetarian. He is responsive to her needs. He's kind of sensitive, and he's never mocked for it. They never make a joke about it.
Oh, right. Yeah.
He's always just like a new kind of guy.
Yeah, he definitely like signals to other people, and nobody is like, "Oh, you don't eat meat, huh?" Like that is definitely a valid point, because a lot of the undercurrent to this movie is this is really the beginning of what you might call like the new age movement, and there's a lot of
It's actually it's quite a ways into that movement. This is a kind of a response to that like back to nature thing. That
Yeah.
like what Deliverance is about. Deliverance is about the getting men back to nature and getting in touch with your inner whatever.
Yeah.
And that's what Deliverance is, a direct response to that movement.
no shit.
And this is too, where it's like, you get this urban grit for the first 40 minutes or so, and then it's juxtaposed with this like kind of back to nature cabin camping, like summer camp for adults type of bullshit.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because it's all done very subtly and very well, and none of it ever feels really forced.
Yeah. Yeah, because this was definitely
Like
this
there's
was the
no
time-
agenda to this.
This was like really this was the like I mean the human potential new age thing. It definitely had its roots in the 70s, obviously, and even a little bit before that, really in the 60s. But like this is when it had really kind of become commodified, and you started to find self-help books all over the place, and there was a lot of this talk about like men being more sensitive and that sort of thing.
You also get the urban decay, like all the, in major cities around the country, you get those discussions about urban decay
Oh, sure.
and about redevelopment, like, white people fleeing the city because it's, a den of iniquity. And then most of them want to go back to something more pure or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that's what's represented here, because Eddie and the whole first act of the movie are really about urban decay.
Yeah.
And kind of moral decline.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's sort of like how we were talking about in Maniac, where this is also the same period where whenever anybody wanted to sort of signal like the urban life is like the city is a jungle and it's nothing but predators all over the place and everything. Whenever they did that, they always set a movie in Manhattan, because like this was like all-time low for New York City. Well, this one is set in Los Angeles, and it does the same sort of thing where like Los Angeles is a pastiche of like different sort of vibes and looks and everything like that. But as far as this movie is concerned, all they want you to know is that Los Angeles is the Sunset Strip at midnight.
It's all like the lead up to a porno.
Yep. Yeah.
And I'll tell you right now, I live in a city, and the biggest threat to me are skinny white guys with mustaches.
Yeah. You can't trust them. No, but it is like this is a sort of establishing scene to sort of really let you know what the nature of their relationship is. And it is a very healthy and loving relationship. They seem to be like, well matched, and they are, they're caring, and it's, it really sets them up, because what happens toward the end of the movie is essentially a breakdown of all of that. But something to note also, because we're about to meet a whole bunch of characters. A lot of the characters in this movie are named after directors of other werewolf movies. So Karen's husband is a guy named Bill Neal. And Bill Neal is the director of Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. Patrick McNee plays a character named Dr. Wagner, and he's named after George Wagner, who directed the original Wolfman for Universal. Terry, Karen's friend, is named Terry Fisher, though I don't think they ever actually say her last name in the movie. But she's named for Terrence Fisher, who did Curse of the Werewolf for Hammer. And there's like a shitload of others. There's even a Paul Naschy reference in it.
Really?
Yeah, but I again, like, I was looking for it and I never heard it.
One of the guy, when they go to the morgue, he mentions someone, Stuart something. That's another one of the.
Yeah.
directors.
But like this movie is also loaded with other like cute little nods and shit all over the place. But yeah, somebody in this character's name is Jacinto Molina, which is Paul Nash's real name. Right, so next we are introduced to Terry and Chris, who are
Love this couple.
I love them too. They're really awesome. They're really funny.
This is some Nancy Drew shit, and I think they're great.
They're the best. They're the best. And most of it, I found this out while I was watching it. I had a little bit of the director commentary track on. A lot of these scenes with them were not in the original script. A producer would come along and be like, I don't think anybody's going to be able to follow this movie. You need to like do some exposition. And so they would like throw these scenes together involving these two in order to kind of move the plot along and kind of keep you on track. And so in the first one where we meet them, they go to Eddie Quist's apartment.
They've got great chemistry too. Like,
they're hilarious.
You couldn't pick better people.
No, they're the best. They're the best. So when they get there, they find the place is like, it's littered with like animal bones and a lot of drawings. Apparently he's a really good artist.
Okay. Is he though?
I think he's a fantastic artist.
Because a lot of this art has like a doodling on your history book in class type of vibe to it.
I wish I could draw like that is what I think I'm really saying here.
I think you can draw like that.
I definitely cannot. But there's
one like when they go to his sister's house and it's like on the wall. It's like, okay, the same person did not do this art.
Which is funny because you're supposed to see it and go, wait a minute.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like, I mean, it's true. Like it's a serial killer's apartment because there's also like clippings of like crime reports from newspapers all over the wall. And
also crime reports, like really old crimes from like the 30s. And it's like, are you just an enthusiast as well?
Oh, is he?
Because there's one that's like something about the sailor's wife or something. It's like
that's later.
It's something really crass, but yeah, it's like this clearly is something that happened a long time ago that he is obviously, or maybe he was involved because they're werewolves, they live forever or something.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I was like, I saw that and I was like, wait a minute.
But
just a collector.
Here's a little taste of some of the clippings on the wall. L.A. baby left unattended, just 3 minutes. Too many rapes to count. Pieces of Tracy's scalp clung to the tire iron. And
that's a headline?
That's a headline. And death by man-eating piranhas. So you get a little reference to the to piranha in there.
I mean, it's any chance. It's just like, hey guys, remember when I made other movies too?
Remember this movie I made 3 years ago?
That was fun. Wasn't that fun when I did that?
So we move forward a little bit, and they're gonna put her back on the news, just as in her regular spot because it's been a couple of days. She'd had a traumatic experience, so they gave her time off. So she's back into the swing of things, and she goes on and freezes up. And they very, very quickly cut away, and they replace the segment with just whatever Kevin McCarthy's character's name is.
Yeah, Kevin McCarthy's kind of like public moralizing.
Yeah,
rant.
talking about our what is it, culture of violence in this country. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's basically like Tucker Carlson bullshit. But hey, this is 1981, and it's a movie about trauma. Suck it, A24.
That's right.
Yep. So the thing is they get her away. They send her to Dr. Wagner because he's just, I don't know, he's there in the studio or something like that. They have a connection to him. And he decides that he's going to send
he's
her
like
up.
their talking head on Eddie Quist. Like he's giving commentary about serial killers.
Yeah. And he decides he's going to send her up to the colony, which is the name of his like therapy retreat. And so we get a little bit of a driving scene just to kind of set you up.
It's like Nexium, but less sexy.
Yeah. There's a lot of old people there. And one of the things Karen says is, I hope these people aren't too weird. And it immediately cuts to John Carradine, fresh off our last movie, The Sentinel, and somehow looking.
Speaking of people looking like they've always been 100.
Yeah. What I was going to say, he's somehow looking better. And this is 4 years after The Sentinel. But he's on the beach there howling with joy in spite of this scene that happens moments later where he seems poised to throw himself on the fire to end it all. So like this guy is bipolar or something. But yeah, so one of the things I wanted to mention, I might have mentioned it when we were talking about it, but this is, again, I said, this is shot up in Mendocino County. There's a really great episode of Horror's Hallowed Grounds on YouTube that you can look up, where the host there, Sean Clark, he drives up there, goes on a tour of all the locations up there. I'll link it in the show notes. But yeah, this is a whole like menagerie of just weird people. And we are introduced to Slim Pickens, who comes shouting into the frame. And I'm not even sure if it's possible for him to speak at room tone. Like, the yelling Texas maniac seems to be his brand.
Did you explain who Slim Pickens is? Because I'm guessing he is probably no longer a household name.
Yeah, it's probably been a little while. He's in Doctor Strangelove. That's where I know. Like, that's where everybody knows him from.
He's in Blazing Saddles too.
Oh well, yeah, but he was in a shitload of movies.
He is also in This House Possessed, a fantastic television film from, I think, this same year.
Damn. Yeah. But he was immortalized on The Simpsons as like the Texas Oil Man character.
Yep.
Yeah. But that's him. He's and this is like basically he's got one gear and he does it really well. And so this is him in every movie. He's just the yelly Texas guy. And after seeing this and like watching it basically again, it sort of struck me for the first time. Are all of these people supposed to be werewolves?
Yes.
Okay. Because
they're all in the scene at the end.
Well, there's a lot of people at this. This is a beach party that we're talking about here. There's a lot of people in this scene.
And like, we're talking like, I know what you did last summer level beach party. Like they are a stone's throw from playing volleyball. This is some real white people shit.
Yeah. They're like cooking prime rib, like a huge cut of beef, like right over an open flame. Like there's a shitload of people. There's a what do you call it? A bluegrass band playing. Like it's.
Yeah, they're all weird stereotypes, except just like Bill or these other characters, they're not treated as the butt of a joke. They're just like, oh, here's some people.
Yeah.
They're just like, even when they introduce, was his TC, is that his name?
Yeah. Yep.
When they introduce him, he is clearly the hillbilly.
Yeah.
But he is also never treated that way.
True. Yeah, like that is true. There is like a sort of like objective attitude towards everybody. Like nobody is a stereotype, even though they're sort of presented as such. Nobody treats them as though they are. That's an like I've never considered that. That's a really interesting
like the movie takes no position on what those stereotypes mean or how we are supposed to feel about them.
Yeah. Because actually, like there's a couple of characters who they turn out to be bad guys, but there's a couple of them that I actually really like that kind of neurotic lady that Karen.
Yeah, her friend.
Yeah, but yeah, it's a whole thing. But also everywhere she goes in this, somebody turns to her and goes, "Hey, aren't you famous?" Or like, "I've seen you on TV." And I swear Slim Pickens is one of those people, because there's a scene
He says it later.
He says it. Does he? But does he do it in this one also? I could swear he does.
No, because you don't. He's actually not introduced in this scene. You're thinking of the other guy who looks a little bit like him.
Oh shit!
The one who owns the cattle, like the cattle ranch.
Oh my god!
Slim Pickens is the sheriff.
Those are different characters.
Yeah, this guy, I can't remember his name. He looks a little bit like Lou. What's his name? Lou Ayres or something like that.
Oh my god! Well,
he looks a lot like him. You'd recognize him from a shitload of other like 70s drive-in trash.
No kidding.
But yeah, at first I was like, that's not him though.
Boy, is my face red.
It's not.
Yeah. I thought he was the same character because he's one of the people who's like, "Hey, you're on TV." And then she sees Slim Pickens later and he goes, "Don't I know you from television?"
Yeah,
it's
someone
like,
else says it to her as well.
Jesus Christ. Yeah. But like, this is like a running joke that goes throughout the whole thing. And it's like, if it's a joke, I don't get it. But it just
well, because he brings it up later at the very end. We'll come back to why it's possible. I think why they do that. But keep going for now. We're at the volleyball scene in Top Gun.
Yeah, playing with the boys.
But spoiler alert: there are werewolves.
Yep, there are werewolves about. Oh, but right, yeah, but like before we do move on there, like this scene, we go back to Carradine, who all of a sudden has to be wrestled away from the fire's edge, from throwing himself on it. And then like later on, we see him again and he's having a really good time. So like, what the fuck is going on with this?
Yeah,
guy?
this is the part of the story that I think does not come across very well.
Yeah.
Like what he's so upset about, because he's muttering to himself.
Yep.
About like the old ways and something, something, something.
Yeah, but it kind of sets you up for the sort of the payoff towards the end as to what the function of the colony really is. Because as we find out, like it's a very specific thing, which kind of makes it weird as to why they wanted to send her here, because she's not a werewolf.
Yeah, no, that's the part, the convoluted part of the story it kind of falls apart.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we get our first sort of like overnight scene, which is where we hear the wolves in the forest. And it's like, all right, now we're getting somewhere. But not before we go back to the city, where we have a scene at the medical examiner's office where Terry and Chris are there to talk about Eddie Quist's body. And of course, the medical examiner is like eating, or he has food right next to the body parts. And I am proposing a moratorium on the eating coroner trope, because I'm so
nobody's going to listen to you.
I know.
Especially not retroactively.
They keep doing it. Well, I can't go back in time, but from now on, if I see it again, somebody's going to jail.
Yeah, either the ghoulish morgue guy or the eating morgue guy.
Because, like, I think, like, did you ever see Autopsy of Jane Doe? Like, I think they were doing that as recently as that. It's like, come on, you got to do something else.
Well, I think it's that way in Autopsy of Jane Doe. I think it's just sort of be like, look, it's just their job.
Yeah.
Something. It's like, yeah, it's their job. It's also a dead body. Like, if I worked in a morgue, I wouldn't be sitting there eating a plate of spaghetti.
Right.
Just because it's funny. Because you know what? I'll be honest, it's not funny.
Nope. I don't know if I ever thought it was cute, But we sure do see it a lot. But the big reveal here in this scene is that Eddie's body is missing, and it's not just missing.
Now I've got questions about this.
Yeah.
So they obviously they open the thing, the body's not there, shock and surprise,
Yep.
And then they look at the door, and the door looks like it's been torn apart. It has claw marks in it.
Yep.
Now, I am not a zoologist. I think that is well established.
Yep.
In order to make a slashing claw mark, one would need to slash, presumably.
Yep.
I don't know how you can do that when you're confined in a tiny box.
Like they're little slash marks,
And also, don't you think someone would have noticed him get out? And also, don't you have to pull the handle for it to open?
Yeah.
Look, I'm getting CinemaSins up the yin yang here. I
really,
know that.
You're really in the weeds with this, but yeah.
But it bothered me because this movie is otherwise very well put together.
Right. But yeah, that's the big takeaway. Eddie's body is missing. So we move back, and this is where Slim Pickens comes apart, because there's Jesus. Oh wait, no. There's a tennis court scene, which is where
that's Slim Pickens.
Yes. So it's just, again, it's like just social stuff, and this is where Slim Pickens is introduced. And I don't know if you noticed this, he is bursting out of that uniform. It's like maybe they sized him and like put him in wardrobe, and then like he didn't come back.
I don't know if they're trying to make him look smaller, because he's a very large man.
Yeah, but like that uniform is literally bursting at the buttons. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's like, Slim Pickens, you are just poured into that uniform.
Yeah. But now we go back to the colony. It's another scene at night. And Karen and whatever that lady's name is are out walking around. There's more howling. There's, suggestions of wolves in the forest. And of course, the flashlight goes out, because it's a horror movie, and it's a flashlight in a horror movie.
And then you got to smack it because it's a flashlight.
And you got to hit it a couple of times, because that's how you do it. I mean, they even work like
that's
that
how batteries work.
Right. You just hit them until they work, even if the batteries
like children.
Yep. We find some dead cows. When the light comes back on, it happens to be illuminating a cow which has definitely been like fucked up by a wolf. And it's just, I guess, like more suggestions that there's werewolves. Like this is a slow progression towards the actual werewolves. Like it's really kind of taking its time. If I can say one thing. Well,
this again is like, he didn't read this book, because this movie is the suggestion of a story.
Yeah.
Filled in with Nancy Drew, plot points.
Yeah. Because like if even though like I prefer this movie, American Werewolf kind of gets to the point like almost immediately, and then like kind of lets you sit on it for a little while. But this one really does take its time. So it's like more like Dead Animals. Oh boy, Coyotes didn't do that. Like, you know, it's obviously something bigger. You're at a movie called The Howling. What could possibly have done it? Like, let's kind of move things along, I suppose.
Yeah, you're also all werewolves. You know what did
Yeah,
it.
but they can't tell her that.
I guess.
supposed to be a
but
secret.
You don't have to be so mysterious.
Yeah. But yeah, so we get the next day, Tom Atkins going hunting with the rest of the dudes. They kind of teach him. And one of the things he remarks on is he's like, don't you guys usually have dogs to go hunting? And they're like, hey, we've got TC, who is definitely not a werewolf.
Yeah, absolutely not. He's only dressed in weird animal skins.
Yeah, he's got
and
like
is sniffing the air.
Yeah, he's got like a wolf skin on his back. I'm surprised they didn't give him like a unibrow to really like drive it home.
They came pretty damn
They came
close.
pretty close. But like, yeah, there's something about him, like something about his face. Like, I don't think he's wearing makeup or anything like that. But there's
Now, and that guy is not a good actor, but he is selling this character.
he was definitely the best pick for the character.
Yeah.
Yep. We go to a group therapy scene where they're trying to help Karen kind of work through her trauma. She's the problem is that she's experiencing like basically amnesia. Like whatever she saw in that booth back in the city, her mind is just blocking, and so she's.
And so in this scene, are they like doing what is it, hypnosis or something? Because it's like she's just narrating what happened.
Yeah.
In this sort of like theater in the round scenario.
Yeah, like,
and he's talking to her as though she is hypnotized, but she is very clearly just sort of lucid and awake.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. I think they might have like if they were doing that, they might have just they might have been a little bit more deliberate on that, because this really does just kind of like look like group therapy.
Like this is what group therapy is like, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But like she gets close, she's getting closer and closer to kind of figuring out what happened. And then we cut to one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie, Walter Paisley's occult bookshop.
With customer numero uno.
Yep. And those weird ass nuns.
I love the nuns.
I love
the nuns are such a great touch because one of them gives the other kind of like a sly smirk.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I have the 4K that Scream Factory put out like earlier this year or whatever. And you can see it all really well. And she kind of like, it's this really cute moment between them where like, they're just kind of do a nonverbal exchange and they're like, fuck it. Let's do it.
Yeah. They walk in and there's just this like demon monster head on the table. And that's where they do the whole like, ooh, look at this kind of thing. But,
and you also get Uncle Forey.
Yep. Forrest Ackerman makes cameo here. And like, it is not even a little subtle. Like the Corman one, like if you don't know what the deal is with that guy, like he's just an extra in the scene. In this one, Ackerman turns around and is holding copies of Famous Monsters of Film.
Yeah, I mean, he may as well have been going,
hey,
you know me?
yeah, he looks at the camera and goes, by the way, I'm the guy who makes these magazines. Yep. But like, this is the scene. And this is Dick Miller just pitch perfect, like A+ performance.
I have never seen Dick Miller give a bad performance in anything. This guy fucking rules.
He's so great. Because like, he's like, we got everything you could want. We got books about body snatchers. We got books about body snatchers. Satanists. The Manson family used to shoplift here. Bunch of deadbeats.
And then she's holding the book and she says something and he's like, yeah, it's a real good book.
But they show you the pages of it. It's like a lot of like old timey like woodcuts and stuff like that. It's like a really cool art in that book. When they take you around and he takes them to the counter they're about to check out, and this is where we're introduced to Chekhov's silver bullets. Yeah, because there's a box of silver bullets that some guy ordered and never picked up.
Oh yeah, this movie goes hard on Chekhov's gun, because earlier she says to her friend, the unnamed friend, she's like, "Doesn't your husband, whatever, doesn't he have a rifle?"
Oh,
and it's
yeah.
like, aha.
There's also like an info dump here, which really kind of keys you into the movie's particular take on werewolf lore. Because like you see, like most people who aren't really kind of really into werewolf movies, like they know one thing: werewolf change on full moon, right? This movie throws that out, and he says, and Walter Paisley tells him, the shapeshifters, they can change form at will. So there's no cycle of the moon kind of thing going on here. They can just turn into werewolves whenever they want. We go back to the forest. Tom Atkins successfully shoots a rabbit. He doesn't really know what to do with it. TC tells him to take it to Marcia, who's his sister. That's what's her name, Elizabeth Brooks?
I wrote this down because she is also not a great actress.
She's a weird credit in the credits too. It says introducing Elizabeth Brooks.
Elizabeth Brooks, and she apparently was like a kind of a hardcore Christian.
Huh. I had no idea.
And she said, and I don't know if this was like a born again situation because what you're leading up to is a horrible sex scene.
Yeah.
And she claimed that they told her that it would be the full frontal nudity would be obscured by the fire. And it kind of is.
It kind of is. Maybe.
And I don't know if that's her sort of like doing the Linda Lovelace thing where she's like, no, they forced me to do it. It's like, did they though?
Yeah.
I want to blame the victim here.
Right. Like, yeah. Like, cause I've also heard the part about towards the end, like the big sort of third act scene where one of Dee Wallace's like actual contract agreements was they would not add nudity to the movie that wasn't already written into the script. So this scene was already written into the script. She had to have known.
Which is weird because I didn't think they still did shit like that by 1980.
Yeah.
Because that's a real Italian move.
That really is. It's a little scuzzy. But this is like, so this just sort of like sets up the kind of the downfall of Tom Atkins. Because he gives her the rabbit and she starts to kind of like cut it up and prepare it to be cooked. But really the whole thing was just to sort of get them together so she can put the moves on him.
And I'll tell you what, like this movie, but a part of the reason it's so good and so fun is that it has a huge cast and they're all really good and they all know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone knows why they're there and what their character is. She's like the only one to me that feels like she doesn't. Like she's constantly like just fucking chomping every bit of scenery she can find. She's making huge eyes. Like her eyebrows are doing a lot of heavy lifting. Like this is a lot. And she just comes on so strong.
She's definitely the movie's sex appeal. And I mean, I know why she's in it. Like she's obviously just easy skin, but like, I wonder if they couldn't have just done the same thing. Cause the whole angle, like her sort of political position in the movie's kind of ultimate philosophy, it makes me wonder if they couldn't have just done that with the TC character. Cause like he's doing the same thing. He's just,
I think they needed a woman though. They needed the bitch,
I guess.
And I think that's kind of what she is, but it's like, she's not even really that. Because they can't decide, like, is she menacing or is she just an asshole?
Yeah.
And she, in the end, she happens to be both, but she doesn't really give you either that well.
But yeah, like she's really kind of like the sex pot in the movie. Cause like the cast does not have a whole lot of that. It's like a lot of movies at the time. It's a very,
we just talked about Slim Pickens. Just fucking poured into those pants.
I know. I can't take my eyes off them. But yeah, this is the whole thing. They're just setting up a little tension to pull him away from Karen.
Well, she's also a contrast between the other women in the movie,
right?
In that they are all very like women of the 80s. They're working women. They're independent. They're kind of empowered. They're not quite B. Arthur, but they're wearing like casual business attire. Yeah. She is a something to be objectified.
Yeah, she's like a Led Zeppelin groupie.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. So like the scene just sort of sets up the dynamic between the two, because then we cut to another night scene where Tom Atkins is walking around outside and he gets attacked by a wolf. He's taken down and he's bitten, but he's not ripped apart. He's just bitten. Mm-hmm. It's an important detail. He goes back and they kind of treat it. They deal with it. Karen's friend, Terry, comes up from the city to visit her.
Oh man!
And this
Terry.
is
Terry. You should have stayed where you belong.
Oh, I know, poor Terry. But this is the scene that kind of like establishes the turn, because the whole time Tom Atkins has been telling people like, I'm a vegetarian. I try not to eat meat, but for whatever reason she's brought like food with her, but she only brought meat. And now he's like, no, it's fine. I'll eat anything if I'm hungry enough. And he's over there just like chowing the fuck down on like ribs or something.
Yeah, he is like fucking what's got change for 100. What?
How much for one rib?
What is Chris Rock's
Chris Rock.
character?
I'm gonna get you, sucker.
Like he is basically like licking his fingers, eating it off the bone.
Oh,
like
with gusto.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, after this scene, we cut again to the cabin. There's a lot of cuts in this movie. It jumps around a lot. You cut to the bedroom, and it's Bill, Tom Atkins, and Karen in bed, and he's reading "You Can't Go Home Again" by Thomas Wolfe.
It's another thing. It's a cute thing.
Yeah, and they do this a
the
bunch.
wolf with wolf bark.
They're going to do this a couple more times, and I noticed all of them. But they go to sleep. Karen wakes up in the middle of the night, and Bill is gone, and he's out in the forest to meet up with Marcia. That's Elizabeth Brooks's character's name is Marcia. And he's gonna meet up.
Man, this scene fucking sucks.
It's gross. It's for he meets up with her for some wolfy forest sex, and I don't. I'm gonna say this. I don't think it's possible for anybody to shoot. Well, not possible because I've seen The Hunger and it's awesome, but I don't think it's possible for anybody to just shoot a sex scene that isn't awkward as fuck.
I mean, granted, what you're doing on camera is already incredibly awkward.
Yeah.
But this is like, it's bad. It is just like, it is a bad sex scene. Yeah. It is a dumb sex scene.
Yeah, and it looks
terrible.
It's made all the worse by like the addition of special effects and then kind of a wonky.
And you're being very generous with that term.
I personally love the transformation makeup, like where they're all furry and shit. Like I love that.
I think his looks good. Hers, I think, looks kind of weird.
Yeah, but yeah, like
because she has this blue cast on her face.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, right. Because there is a lot of they do a lot of like color theory type shit in this scene. Because there's the blue of the night and the sort of orange of the glow of the fire and stuff like that. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I watched Night Beast right before I did this one again, and that one's also got a fucking awful sex scene in it. So like, I'm just like, I've been assaulted today. But they transform, and it's like, it's a long sort of back and forth. Because like they start to growl and then they've got the mouth appliances in, which look huge and really uncomfortable to wear.
They do. And they look kind of bad when like they linger too much and it's like drooling and you can't like, it's sort of like, are they drooling intentionally or is that because they can't really open their mouths?
I would imagine that it's probably intentional just to make it a little grody, but there is one thing about the transformation scenes in this movie that I love, and the only other place I've ever seen them do it is in Salem's Lot, and it's that reflective eye thing that they do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. I don't know where it came from, but I think it's cool as hell. Like,
I think it came from Salem's Lot.
It must have. Like it.
I think because when Tobe Hooper decided he wanted that character to be more of an animal.
Yeah.
He was like, how do I make someone look like? How do I sell animal when it's a blue guy? And someone was like, well, animals have reflective eyes. Boom. But also wolves do too. So.
Yeah. That just because they do it, they don't do it all the time. They do it a few times in the movie, and when they do, it's awesome. Most notably, at the end during Karen's transformation, like. They were really, really making a point to sort of draw your attention to it. But
because otherwise they have those big, dumb green eyes.
The contact lenses are not great.
Because I think they ran out of money towards the end of this movie.
They did. They went way over budget on this. I think this movie was originally like a 6-figure movie that bled into the million range. And I think
Roger Corman saw that and was like, I could make it 3 movies for that much money. And then he did.
Yeah, and then he did. But yeah, I think it's why the Karen Wolf looks so fucking weird at the end is because like they just lacked money. But moving on,
Terrible Wolf Sex.
Which
is also the name of my new band.
I'll be playing harmonica.
Yeah.
Yep. But we go to another scene where
also wait, did you notice that in her cabin or when he brings the rabbit to her, she has just the fucking worst like flea market painting of a wolf on the wall?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like it looks like the kind of shit that you'd paint on the side of a van.
Oh sure. I mean, who knows? They probably did. Like they probably went to some night market and were like, okay, 3 Wolf Moon, grab that one, and then that one from Grizzly Adams, get that one.
It's the kind of thing where I would give it a second look, and then I'd have to be like, no, you are in your 40s. You cannot put that shit in your house.
Yep. Do you still have that black velvet bullfighter painting?
No, that belonged to my old roommate from 1,000 years ago, and
Oh no, that was a hell of a painting.
I think maybe I didn't. Maybe Emily got me. I don't know. I do not have it anymore.
God, that's a bummer. But moving on, Terry is doing more of her Nancy Drew stuff, and this is when she's shuffling through like all the drawings that she has, and she's down on the beach, and she realizes that the beach she's on is the landscape that she found drawn in Eddie Quist's apartment with like the rest of.
And so this is the beach that looks like the Goonies to me.
Right. It certainly could be. I'd have to look it up. Like, I'm not really sure where the Goonies was shot, but I mean, it was probably somewhere in Northern California, because it kind of has that look of like, once you go up above like Bakersfield, it starts to have everything gets really forested and like
Yeah, it's very like Pacific Northwest looking.
Yeah, like the town in what's it called? In the Fog.
That is Monterey Bay.
Yeah.
No, that's God.
You know what I'm talking about, but that place.
It's where the Birds is shot.
Yes. Yeah.
Bodega Bay.
That's right. So it's all like up there. Everything's a little foggy. It's definitely, like you said, Pacific Northwest. Because I think the Goonies is supposed to take place in Washington. But yeah, this is the whole vibe. It's maritime, coastal, forested coastal area, and she is going to go back to kind of tell Karen what she's found. On her way through the woods, she's drawn to Marcia's cabin by a mysterious voice. And so when she goes in, there's nobody there, but she finds a piece of art by Eddie Quist and the smiley face sticker.
I think that's the one. This is the piece of art where it's like, this is clearly a PA that did this.
Well, I think it was a drawing of, because there's also in the scene where Bill is in Marcia's cabin, there's a drawing of her that also that has that kind of scratchy, scribbly style, that Eddie Quist style. That's probably supposed to make you go, but this is the scene that really kind of nails it down, because she goes through the door with the smiley face sticker. We find Eddie's room with more art and more clippings, and this is the one that you'd mentioned earlier. It's a clipping that says "A gang rape for the sailor's wife."
Yes.
Yep. There's another one that says "The rape murderers forget to wash off their victim's blood." There's one that says "Sudden death for the tennis queens."
Okay, well now you got me interested.
Then my favorite, it's the last one. "The heels of the corpse had turned purple."
I saw that one as well.
But yeah, so she realizes like she's in the lion's den here. Like,
this is back when journalism was fun.
Oh my God. Like, they must have made these because they're fucking hilarious. But also, like, I wonder like if true crime magazines of the era actually had titles like this, or like that magazine Violent World that the Misfits wrote a song about.
Yep.
But yep, this is where she's finally attacked. She's attacked by a wolf. And this is the first glimpse of the wolf suit that we get in the movie. Like, and it's really the first time that we really see the wolves proper. Because even in the scene where Bill and Marcia are transforming for wolf sex, it's not the full transformation, and it's not, it's really, they're not.
It's all tight. It's like tight close-ups shots.
Yeah, but she gets like chased out of the place, and she's in a little little shack off to the side. She gets chased out. She finds like a hatchet. She hides in the woodshed, and the wolf like rips through the wall and is attacking her, is reaching in with his wolf hand, and she chops off the wolf's hand with the hatchet, and the wolf obviously runs away. But this is like one of my favorite parts of the whole movie, where she's like sitting there watching it, and we see it transform back into like a human hand. So awesome. And it's such a gross little effect too. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this was the high era of the bladder effect. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure who introduced this, but like,
I believe it's Tom Savini.
Must have been, because all of a sudden everybody was doing it. And we talked about this in our Amityville 2 episode, because there's a shitload of bladder effects in the Amityville 2 episode, like a lot of them.
It must be cheap or easy.
It's got to be, because it's just little, like a little hand pump, and like the bladders are usually condoms. and it's just latex appliances over it and little hoses that you hide in, the person's hair or whatever. And you just give a little pump here and there, and it's gross enough. It works.
Like, it doesn't actually convey anything other than something supernatural is happening.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a specific thing that it's doing.
Sure.
Because there's no reason why it would be happening in this case.
Nope.
It's just like, oh,
it's cheap.
he's not human.
It's cheap. It's easy. It's gross. And it suggests, it's very, very effective in suggesting something's up. But this is where she basically goes back to the doctor's office and gets on the phone. She calls up Chris.
Wait, did you notice that the doctor, for some reason, has a signed photograph of Lon Chaney Jr. on the wall?
Yep. And he's also
just for no reason.
Just because it's a werewolf movie and he's the wolf man.
I mean, if someone gave me a signed picture of Lon Chaney Jr., I'd put it on my wall too, I guess.
Oh, yeah. But it's a great picture of Lon Chaney Jr. Like, this is definitely before he was a booze hound.
Oh, yeah.
But he also has a copy of Allen Ginsberg's Howl on the desk.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Oh, yeah. No, they're going to do it one more time. But she's talking to Chris, and Chris is like, you go into his file cabinet and look up the name Quist. And what she finds there is that TC and Marcia are both last name Quist, and that they're probably, they don't really establish it, but I think they're just brother and sister of Eddie Quist, because Eddie's also got a file in there. But before she can really do anything about it, we get to finally see the full wolf suit proper. It's awesome.
And man, I'll tell you, this is when humor goes out the window.
It's a brutal scene.
Because it is slow. This is a slow death.
Yeah. Because he comes in smashing through the door, and it's whoever's in that wolf suit is enormous because it's big. And we've seen, like,
is it the guy who did Predator? That guy, the alien?
Oh, I don't know. It might have been because he's tall. He's very tall.
Yeah.
But yeah, and he gives poor Terry a good once over. Like, really, really rips her up, and he chomps into her neck.
But he just like holds her there, staring at her, and she's kind of like screaming and staring at him, and the whole thing is kind of frozen. And then he very slowly
bites. Yeah, that's the thing. It's not like it's a savage tear or a big old chomp. Like, it's a loving embrace.
Yeah, it's kind of unnerving.
Yep. But she is killed by presumably Wolf Eddie is who it is. And we'll find out in a moment, because Karen comes into the scene, into the office, and she finds Terry's body like all fucked up by the wolf on.
And she is very casual about this.
Yeah, she just kind of calmly puts the sheet over her body, and then she steps away, and then she turns and she backs up into the same gurney that was holding it, but now it's Eddie Quist who like leaps.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm on board for this little switcheroo,
because he's
this is some real sleight of hand
this
stuff.
Is like Jason Voorhees shit that he's pulling. Yeah. Like, really, because like all of us, like, she's gone, and he jumps up, and there's like a big menacing back and forth where we see him. Like, this is really the first time we see him, because like we only really catch like glimpses of him in the past. And this is Robert Picardo who's playing the character. And he, just for no other reason than it's awesome, he's still got the bullets in his head that the cops shot him with. And so he like puts his finger into the hole. He says, I want to give you a piece of my mind. And he like pulls the bullet out. And then he proceeds to do like, this is the movie's like flagship transformation. Because before, like, you don't really see anybody transform, or it's done kind of like in the way that they did it in like the Universal Wolfman, where it's kind of like a bit of a fade or cutaway and a cut back, and there's a little bit more fur. Well, like, this is the one where like his body changes shape, and I think it's great. I think it's better than Rick Baker's transformation.
Really?
I do. I think Rick Baker's because what it is this one's a little bit more fast. It's a little bit more like smash cut. The American Werewolf one really savors,
because I think American Werewolf is trying to make it look like an actual transformation would look.
Yeah.
This one, they're just like, here's goofy sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
Like, it looks cool, but they're not so concerned with like, well, how do his limbs stretch?
Yeah.
Like that shit.
Yeah, because like I mean that stuff, like you see it, but also like I was saying, the American Werewolf one is just a little slower. It's definitely in love with itself. Like they're really into it, and like I think in the commentary for this movie, like Dante says, like this was one of the last things that we shot, and we didn't know how it was going to look, and we were all praying that it didn't look like shit. Um, so he got lucky, I guess. Um, it's definitely it's not as technically impressive as the Baker transformation, but I think it's a lot better.
I think they're conveying different things. The American Werewolf one, I think you're supposed to get a sense of like the pain that he's going through. Like you're really supposed to empathize with him.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, it's just like here's Lon Chaney turning into a werewolf.
Yeah, and
but
also they're
cooler.
different kinds of werewolves. Like this is really more wolf man, where American Werewolf, he turns into like a wolf on all fours, and in this one, they're like upright standing. They're like half human, half wolf kind of things. They're
With
both
big
great.
pointy
I don't want to
ears.
say like that. Like the other one is qualitatively worse. It's just I like this one better. It's just a lot nastier because like also like
They're trying to achieve different ends.
yeah. Like this one, like his clothes are getting ripped off, and like he's all of a sudden just like bursting, and it's just like wolf fur all over the place. It's great. It's just great. But Karen is she's not frozen with fear. She's got conveniently a jar,
Just a random jar of acid.
which just happens to be in every doctor's office. She turns it, unjars it, throws it at him, and it's enough to put the wolf in sufficient pain to get her out of there. We cut to a gas station where Chris is on his way up to meet her. He's got, and again, I don't know what the fucking deal with this scene is, but he stops at a gas station.
This is like the best line of the movie.
Yeah. He's like, hey man, can you like speed this up or something? And the guy turns to him and he's driving a little like Mazda sports car. And the guy goes, hey, not all of us can afford a Mazda.
Like, was that a real hot brand or something?
It must have been.
I didn't know.
Like, I don't know. I had a Mazda. It sucked.
Yeah, mine did too.
But now we're rounding the corner. We're coming into the third act. We cut back to but also before this happens, there's a real quick shot back to the occult store where he basically goes in, grabs a box of bullets, and just throws a wad of cash at Walter Paisley. Who's like, hey, I got to take these to the jeweler. I don't know what to charge for him. He's like, bill me. He runs out the door. So now silver bullets are in play. But we go back and we're at the barn where all of the wolves but they're not wolves yet, but they have Karen and they're taking her to the barn, which is like the ritual area or something like that. And this is the big reveal. We're all werewolves. And there's really kind of two factions at play here. And Dr. Wagner and the colony exists as a means to sort of like rehabilitate the wolves and sort of like tame them so that they aren't just like wild animals running wild killing people all over the place.
Yeah, this all starts to feel real Bethesda gamesy to me.
You're right. Because at the other side of it is Marcia, whose whole thing is like, we're not meant to be tamed. And Carradine actually has a line that's like, you're trying to tame what can't be tamed or something like that. It's
And that line is lifted from something else. I can't remember what it is, but it's a quote from something.
But yeah, like their whole thing with the Quists is they're trying to get the wolves to sort of like embrace their wildness. And Chris shows up and he goes into the doctor's office again, but he's got a rifle with the bullets. And this time Eddie is there. He keeps calling him Bright Boy.
Yeah, that's another one that sounds really weird.
It feels like it's from something because there's like no reason for him to call him that. I don't know why.
And he says it with emphasis.
Yeah.
Every time.
Because he does it a couple of times that he does it.
Yeah. But even this dude, he's just like, oh no, my wife is dead.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Right. Yeah.
Onward and upward.
But Eddie is all fucked up because he's back in human form now and his face is all jacked up from the acid and it's like he's like visible bone and stuff like that. It's pretty wild. But he gives Chris the rifle back and he's basically invites him to shoot him because like, hey, nothing can kill me. No such thing as silver bullets. Well, joke's on him.
Yeah.
Because he gets shot and it takes him out.
Yeah, that's hubris.
Yep.
Eddie Quist.
And so he then runs from there to the barn to rescue Karen, and all of the wolves kind of come at Chris, but they're not wolves yet, but they're
And this scene is so Roger Corman is all over this movie, but particularly this scene, the way it's lit, the way like it all looks like a weird soundstage.
Yeah. You kind of expect just Vincent Price to show up.
Yeah. I mean, it's great. It's a great moment. It's just like there's a lot of like really intentional throwback shit, and I think this scene is one of them.
Yeah. I mean, just the inclusion of John Carradine really kind of hammers that home. But again, like they all come at Chris. TC starts to transform.
He's only got one hand.
Yep, only got one hand. He's very angry about that. Then again, I'd be pretty upset about that too. But he
Walter Paisley told us it's going to grow back, but not for TC. It's not,
because he gets shot with silver bullets. Actually, a lot of them get shot with silver bullets. He kills a few of them.
Yeah, for a dude with a like a bolt action rifle, he is really he's a good shot.
Yep. They shoot everybody in the stomach, which is so
center of mass.
Yep. He gets Wagner. He gets Karen back, and they shut the barn up where all the wolves are inside, and now they're all transforming. They're all transformed, and they sort of douse it with gas and set it on fire. Because again, one of the other things that Walter Paisley told him, it's either silver bullets or it's fire that'll kill him. And so they set the place on fire, and the wolves are stuck inside, and they're trying to get out. And we think in this moment, we find out that Karen thinks that Bill is dead. She doesn't realize that he's like among them.
Oh, Karen.
Yep. So they make their escape. There's a wolf attack.
That's your Chekhov's Bill, is what that is. Your Chekhov's Tom Atkins.
Yep. They started to make their escape, and one of the they get stopped. They have to deal with Slim Pickens, who's still in.
Yeah, they get stopped by Slim Pickens.
Yep, Slim Pickens
just bursting out of that suit,
just coming apart at the seams, and he gets shot with silver bullets. They move to his car to get away because their car has been all shot up. The Mazda explodes,
and then it explodes in a ball of flame.
Yeah, because you gotta. It's awesome. That's why you do it.
Yeah.
They're about to get away when they're attacked again by a wolf, which bites Karen. But she manages to crack a shot off, kills him, and the wolf falls dead in the back seat, and they find out.
Didn't you know it?
It's Bill's body.
That's right.
Yeah. So now they're away, and they're back at the TV station. Karen decides that they got to warn everybody. They got to let them know.
Must not sleep, must warn others. Here we go.
Yep. So she goes on TV. She's part of the regular, anchor crew, and she gives a monologue and goes and tells everybody that there's a werewolf colony and they live as like a secret society among us. And then because she knows that nobody's going to believe her, she transforms. And this is like the big moment.
Man, this fucking scene starts off so cool.
It's so awesome. It really is. It's because like,
and then they just kick you right in the dick.
They do because like she's very pained. She's doing it. She's got that awesome eye reflection effect again.
Yep. And like all the camera, like the lights are hot and like all on her face. Yep. So gnarly.
She does that great scream. And then she begins to transform into a fucking puppy.
Yep. Lady on the news turned into a werewolf.
Yep. Like she's like where the others are all like gnarly Muppet werewolves. She looks like a toy dog that a rich lady carries around in a purse.
So actually, I want to go back because I never addressed the thing I said I was going to. The reason why they all keep saying, "Aren't you famous?" Because what he says at the end in the barn is, we can't get rid of her. She's famous. People know who she is. That's why I think they keep doing that. It's because so everyone knows that she is a famous person.
Gotcha. All right. It's a little loose, but it doesn't make any sense why she's up there at all.
No. My problem with this ending is that it's not only does it look like shit, and not only do they pull the rug out from under you during what is such a cool scene, it's that she doesn't look anything like the rest of them.
Yeah.
So if she's going to be a werewolf, why doesn't she just look like they all look the fucking same? Why doesn't she look like one of them too? Instead, she looks like a Shih Tzu.
Now the line officially, if you look it up, and I think it's like if you look it up in like IMDb trivia, like she specifically was like, I don't want to be a nasty werewolf. I want to be like feminine or something like that. But it's like that doesn't.
Oh, fuck off, D. Wallace. You can't do that.
I don't know. I don't know if I trust that because
that's some dumb shit that she wouldn't say, that no one would say.
they have just reused one of the other suits, or like at least the head, because you don't even really see her full body. It's just a tight close up on what looks like a really small model.
Also, that supposed explanation has a little bit of misogyny whiff about it, because it's like, this woman is a professional. I cannot imagine she would walk in and be like, I want my werewolf to be pretty.
Maybe, but I mean, this comes from her specifically, so I don't fucking know. I don't know. I think it's just them explaining away a crappy werewolf at the end.
Yeah, well, you ruined the end of the movie, D. Wallace.
Yeah, thanks,
You're happy
lady.
with yourself.
I hope you're happy.
That's
with
why
E.T.
you didn't get famous. Or famouser.
Yeah. But yeah, so she's transformed into this crappy lady werewolf. I mean, it's a hell of a scene. Otherwise, it's just, good God, it lands with such a squish. Like, it's not. It could
Dumb thud.
Yeah. But before she can run wild, Chris, who got a rifle with him at the workplace.
Nobody says a thing
Nobody
about it.
says
Everyone else
anything.
is freaking out. Chris is just cool as can be. Loads the gun and shoots her in the head.
Shoots her. And then we cut to some audience reactions for a little bit of comedic effect. And they cut to a couple who we see where the guy says, hey, what is this? That is future director and Stephen King addict Mick Garris. Yep. There's a couple of kids who are, the mom's like, hey, what are you guys watching? They're like, hey, the lady on the news is turning into a werewolf.
Yep.
And then we cut away from that to like a roadhouse, and we find out that Marcia has escaped. And then the credits,
Boo.
Yeah, and then the credits roll over a hamburger being cooked,
which is like it's the equivalent of eating the hamburger in the morgue.
Yeah,
it's that, like, someone gets their head cut off and then splat on a plate.
Yep.
Of ketchup.
Is it weird that, like, when the guy goes to flip the burger, it practically comes apart, and that I'm really weirded out by that? Like, when that happened, I was like, oh my God, that burger sucks.
I think it's just gross to watch it happen. Like, I think that's the point, is that, like, it's just gross. Like, we're just here to be disgusting.
Right, because he turns to her, he's like, hey, how do you like your burger? And she's like, rare, or something like that. Or
Get
like
the
extra
fuck
rare.
out.
It's like, oh my God, just shut up. Just eat the fucking thing raw. But, yep, the end. The Howling.
Wow.
An otherwise great movie.
That is a killer. That movie is so good.
It's so good. And you can just tell that they hit the wall with money at the end. And it's really too bad. But
I mean, he got Gremlins out of it.
Jesus Christ. I mean, yeah. I mean, it was enough to move Steven Spielberg. Because, like,
it's weird that that's like that's the most it did. And then he sort of peters out. Like, he keeps making movies, but,
well,
and they're good movies.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean,
but they're nowhere near as high profile as that. It's like Tobe Hooper gets Poltergeist and then makes dog shit after that.
Yeah. I mean, I know what you're saying.
Because Steven Spielberg doesn't want to carry the team forever.
Nothing really does. I mean, that is a fair point. Nothing really compares to Poltergeist and Gremlins. Like, these are two humongous fucking movies in the 80s. But, like, Joe Dante makes Inner Space, which is,
Oh yeah, I mean, he made Matinee, he made Inner Space, he made The Burbs. Like, there's good fucking movies.
They're not the Gremlins, though.
No.
And then Tobe Hooper,
because they don't have Papa Spielberg's name.
This is true. I think
tacked on.
I think Hooper's problem was he shacked up with fucking Cannon.
Hooper had a lot of problems, and I think his personality was probably the biggest one.
Yeah, but yeah, Joe Dante's The Howling, a movie that I like tremendously.
Hell of a movie.
Yep.
And there is a world in which this movie is absolutely terrible. Like, this is so on the line of falling apart all the time,
right?
That it is a wonder that it actually works.
Well, this goes back to one of the ones that we talked about with The Sentinel, where it was a movie, I think, that where it got picked up as soon, it was optioned as soon as it was published. And it went through a lot of development problems, because Dante and Sayles were not the original director and writer.
Because
this went through a bunch of
Avco, right?
Yeah. So this went through a bunch of writers. It had another director.
So they're banking on having another Carpenter success.
Yeah.
Because that's where all their money came from at that point.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately it did. I mean, it was a very successful movie. So, good for them.
Good stuff.
But yeah. So what are we doing next?
Well, tell you, we're gonna get into some themes now. We're getting into a theme month. Let me consult my list here. Because it is now going to be May, we're getting into the school's out time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And we're gonna go for a real deep cut here. I just looked at my list and then totally threw it aside. Final exam.
Final exam. This okay.
Now, have you seen Final Exam?
I've not, and you know what? I've never even heard of it until you mentioned it. But it just landed on Shudder, so the timing's real good.
Okay. It's a bit of a bargain bin slasher. I think it has a lot of charm. It is not good. The acting is laughable, but it has its moments. It is very odd.
I'll tell you what, some of my favorite episodes that we've done so far are on some of the lower end movies. Like they tend to be the most just outwardly entertaining flicks.
Well, this is gonna be one because it is a great movie. I have seen it several times, and it is a fun watch.
All right, awesome. So join us back here 2 weeks when we do Final Exam.